Welcome back to my 100 JavaScript project from beginner to master. This is project number 2, and today we are building a stopwatch and timer using only HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. You will see how to switch between modes, start, pause, reset, and even send a countdown timer that lets you when time's up. Let's get started. Before we get started, make sure you've created your project folder. I've created a project folder called Stopwatch and Timer. This is our project 2. So open that folder in VS Code. Inside VS Code, create a free files: index.html, styles.css, and script.js. So we're going to start with index.html. Type exclamation mark and press tab. We're going to start by changing this title to Stopwatch and Timer. Stopwatch and Timer. Then inside the body, need a div with class name of container, and inside that div, need another div with class name of mods. Inside that mod, you need 2 buttons. First button is for stopwatch, and the second is for timer. So we put function here. On click, function name switch mode, and give column of stopwatch, and right here stopwatch. On click on second button switch mode, and put here timer, and right here timer. And another div is for input. So input to give class name of hidden, and write input, type to it be number, the ID. You can say input minutes and press order minutes. Then here put ID of, can give ID of timer input. And another div is for display for our output. It will be displayed in this div. So give the class ID of display, and can put 6 zeros here as default. And the last div is for controls. Controls will need 3 buttons. So first button is for start, second is for pause, and the last is for reset. So on click start function, and write start here. On click pause function, write pause here, and on click here is set, then write reset. So open this file with live server if you have it. So I have already opened it with my live server. I need to refresh. So this is our structure, and we need to style that. So inside the head, write link and put your CSS file here, and at the bottom write a script and write script.js. So now it's time for styling. We're going to start with body. So body, font family, background, linear gradient 135 degree, then put 1D, 2, 6, and 7, 1, and another color C3, 764, color it will be white, and display flex flex justify content center, align item center, and height 100 VH, and margin 0. So go to your browser to see changes with cool, lavish background color. So another thing we're going to study is this container class. So container text align center, background RGBA 000 0.4. Let's check that. Good. So say padding, we give padding of 30 pixels and border radius 15 pixels, and box shadow card is 30 pixels, 20 pixels, RGBA 0.3, and width 300 pixels. So back to our browser, see how our container looks good. So another thing here we're going to do, you can add H1 here, that's the stopwatch and timer. So back to our browser to see, we need to start this H1. So I can say H1 margin bottom 20 pixels. Then mods, remember this class name of mods here. So mods button, comma, and controls. Course controls, we want to style these buttons. So, and we need to grab this class. So buttons, and we're going to start style from background. So FF 9800, and border none, padding 10 pixels, 20 pixels, and margin 5 pixels, border radius 8 pixels, cursor pointer, and font size of 16 pixels, and font weight bold, and transition background 0.3 second. So back to your browser, if you hover, you see some changes. Make sure to write class correctly. Can just come here and copy. So in order to prevent mistakes, And the reason this color, if you hover, the color doesn't change. We need to make that button hover. To start with hover, so can, if you hover button, can see some changes. So to do that, then you can just come here and copy this profiles and say here hover, and here hover, and some color, comma, and we need to change background. So background, you can say E6 8900. So if you hover the button, you see some changes. You see, that's what we want. So another thing we are going to style is this display button. I mean display class. So here, display font size 2.5 rem and margin 20 pixels 0 and font weight bold, and say background RGBA 0000.6 and padding 15 pixels and border radius 10 pixels. And the last thing we need to style is this class of hidden for our input. So hidden display none. So we want that if we switch between mode, that input will appear. So this is our final CSS. You see how it looks good. If I hover, you see the background of button change somehow. So next part is for making this app works, and we need script.js. And make sure you have already linked that script inside the CSS like this. So I'm going to start with variables 8 mode. Let's go to stopwatch. So assign that mode is equal to stopwatch like our default. So let time is equal to 0, and we need this function name. We are going to use this function name of switch mode. So to do that, function switch mode, and put parameter of new mode, and inside that you start by creating interval. So start creating interval so that there is no error. You can get that. So here we create interval, this interval, and we assign that interval to null. And another thing, we assign time or timer to 0, or you can use time instead of timer. So here we say document.get element by id. We use DOM to grab this element, this id of display, so that it will be easy to display our stuff there. So this 6 zeros, and we assign mode to new mode. That means this mode to equal to this new mode. That means this function has this stopwatch mode as default. So, and we say here document.get element, and then another thing, we are going to grab this element, this id of this div for our input. That's things we want is if I click on this timer, the input will appear. If I click stopwatch, it will disappear. So to do that, after I grab that div id of input, so make sure to copy that. So copy that and paste it here. Then write style dot display, and if mode, let's write it like this. If mode is equal to timer, if it's a true, to display block. If it's not, if it is none, if it is not, if mode is equal to timer, it will display block. If mode is equal to stopwatch, it will display none. So go back to your browser. If I click timer, input, it will appear. If I click stopwatch, input, it will disappear. That's what we want. So the next thing we are going to do is for function or formatting our time. So function format time. Inside we put a second as our parameter. So we need total second. So mat.flow. This function means it will round to the nearest number. If it's 5, like for example, if it's 5.9, if we use that mat.flow, it will go to 5 or the nearest number, but not above like 6 now. It will below. I think that makes sense. So inside that mat.flow, we say millisecond divided by 10,000. And you know that 10,000 milliseconds is equal to 1 second. So let minute is equal to again math.flow total second divided by 60. And you know that 1 minute have 60 seconds. And let seconds is equal to total second remainder of 60. And the last, let milli seconds is equal to math.flow, then put here inside millisecond remainder of 10,000 and divided by 10. So instead of getting 1000 millisecond, we get 100 millisecond. And return function here. So string with minute dot pad start and put 0 here. So this string, because minute is totally in number, and we want minute like this. If minute is equal to like 5, and we want to display 05 to make it look good. So to do that, we take this minute and convert them into string and use pad start. This first pad start, this is length and this is a value. That means if like minute is equal to 5 or 3 or any one number, so it will display this instead of 5. I think that makes sense. And we'll add this and then string second, and we also use this and again millisecond pad start, and like this. We also do that like the same how we did it on minute. So that means if number doesn't have 2 length, we will add 0. We add 0 in, and the 0 will not add at the last. We will add 0 at start, like this. If millisecond is like a 4, we add and put 0 in front of 4. So that is for our format time function. Another thing is format function update timer. the function we use to update our time. So function update timer, and for our timer we need only minutes and seconds. So flow and say time divided by 60. And remember this time variable name we have already declared at the first, at the top of our JS. So and we need seconds. So you say time remainder of 60. So here we display document.get element by id display text content, and string means or minute and pad start, and add this a string seconds pad start. Here I put 0 and cross with that semicolon. Another thing we are going to use is if condition. So here if time is lesser than or equal to 0 and time and mode is equal to timer, here we will clear interval and set interval to null and use alert and put the message here. I can say time's up. And our function update. And that's it for our function update. So another thing we are going to use is these three functions. So start, pause, set. We're going to start with start. So function start. If not interval, here we say inside that if condition, if mode is equal to stopwatch. So we'll assign interval to set interval and put allow function, and the time it will increase by 10. Good. And here we put 10. That means every 10 seconds time it will increase by 10. And you need to put document get element by id display dot text content format timer and put time here. That means put this function time to convert. So it will convert that every 10 seconds and give us output. Output will be this. It will return this number with. I think that makes sense. It's more clearly. And after if condition put else if time is equal to 0 and here say const in if time not timer pass int. So we need to grab value of input in integer not float. That's why we use pass dot int. That's why we use pass int. So inside pass int we write get element by id, grab this side of input So input minute dot value or 0 here. That will say time is equal to input multiplied by 60. And after that condition, we put another condition of if, and say if time is greater than 0, we will update time. Then after we update that time, we say interval equal to set interval and put arrow function and set time decrement. And after time decrement, you'll update our function time. So, and put here interval of 1000. So if we try to check that if it works, if I create stopwatch time, start, it will start. See? Cool. Here, if I put 1 minute and I click start, it will start decrement. But you can also try to style this input to make that look lavish. So need to style that input. So to do that, inside your styles.css, after control button hover, so you can say timer input and say margin gives 15 and 0, and here I can say time. Make sure to write that ID clearly, so in order to prevent any error. Timer input and put input. So say padding for input will be 10 pixels and border radius it will be 6 pixels and border it will be none and width 120 pixels and text align center and font size can say 16 pixels. Can say 16 pixels. So back to our browser, you see how input now looks good. So if I refresh, cool. So the function we are going to do is for pause, then last is for reset. Can also put in full screen, so whatever you want. And I'm going to start with this pause function. So for pause function, we say function pause. For function pause, we start by creating interval and we set interval to null. So back to our browser, if I click start pause, and if I click start, it resume, same as input. So if input, I put 1 minute and I click start. If I click pause, it pause. If I click start again, it resume. So the last thing we are going to do is for function reset. Function reset, you also start with creating interval and we set interval to null and set time to 0. And here we say mode. If mode is equal to stopwatch document.get element by ID displays text content say 000000 and else for a timer. So document.getElement by id display and text content. I will put 2 zeros, 4 zeros only. And the last thing, need to clear input. If we reset, and need to also clear input. So we say getElement by id, we grab the id of our input, this timer input. So timer input, sorry about that. I mean this input of this id of input. So the id is input minute. So grab that and paste it here. And value we say it's got to empty. So back to our browser, and for timer, put 1 minute. If I click pause, to pause. If I click reset, it reset, and input it is set. That's what you want. So for stopwatch, if I click start, pause, reset, good. And yeah, if I click start, you can wait to see this message of alert time's up. So let's wait. You see how this stopwatch and timer, it is easy. All you need is to have the logic of how it works. So the 30 seconds remaining. 26 and 20. Alert message, you are going to see that time is up. Here we made a mistake. Why it doesn't give that message? So we need to check that. Why it doesn't. Anything related. Timer. If time is lesser than 0. Let's remove this timer. Let's say if time is lesser than or equal to 0. See that. Let's again try it for a timer. Checking codes. Can wait a few seconds to see when this input code to 0 to see if we get that message. That's what you want, time's up. And if you click reset, so I think this makes sense. What you've learned how to use to grab the element by using getElement ID, how to use set interval, how to use a clear interval, and how to use math, flow, and string. In this tutorial, you've learned much more than you think. And if you found this video helpful, make sure to subscribe so you don't miss any content like this. And if you have any question, suggestion, you can put in the comment and I will try my best to respond. Ciao.